Beware outbreaks of fist bump epidemics and Udaman affirmations possible.
Everybody, welcome back to Dad Space. It's the podcast for dads by dads. And today, I get to talk to another dad. I don't have to sit here and look at my monitor screen and talk to myself. People say my wife says I talk to myself quite often, but I do it with a microphone and it's okay. It's called a podcast. But now I have Andy with me, and Andy's here to talk about his journey as a dad, lots of things happening, shifting priorities, new identity, all kinds of stuff happening as a dad as our kids get older. I'm going to tell everybody we're going to own your awkward today. Everybody, we're going to get a little bit awkward with Andy, because Andy loves to get awkward. And we're going to have a great conversation. Andy, welcome to Dad Space. Good to have you here, my friend.
Thank you, Dave. It's always a pleasure. I love chatting with you. Like we were saying before we started recording, like we can go down any rabbit hole we want to and just get lost for hours, I'm sure. So I'm glad to talk about dad stuff today.
So what I love about podcasting, Andy, is I get to meet people who are the best people in the world. Like having time with you. You've been on multiple of my shows and you just keep coming back, which I love. But when I see you on my screen, this isn't work at all. This is like, I've been looking forward to this all day just to have time with you. So I think for anybody listening as a dad, this whole world of podcasting, I gotta tell you, you're going to meet some of the nicest people ever. So anyways, Andy, I just appreciate you being here, making time to do this. Let's start. I do this on other shows, but where are you in the world for people that are listening to us here on Dad Space?
I'm in Tacoma, Washington, so right in the northwest corner of the U.S.
There you go. Okay. All right. Must see, must do thing in your part of the world. Where would you take me? Where would we go?
Oh, man. From where I am sitting, within an hour, you can get to the ocean or the mountains or, city life. So you really have the best of all the worlds. I'm not like a big swimmer, but I am a water guy. Like I love being by the beach, by the water, or a hike through the gorgeous woods here. Like my favorite place right here would be to go to the Hoh rainforest. It's the largest rainforest in the world outside of the Amazon, and really? So many species of plant life and moss. It's like being in another planet. It's amazing. It's gorgeous.
I would never even have known that was there. Okay, wow.
And I was too old before I knew it. Before I knew how intense it was,
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm going to have to do some research now. You're giving me homework. I like that. I like homework. This is good. Talk a little bit about family. Andy, like how many kids do you have? Age approximate for your kids and stuff? Give us a breakdown of your family.
Yeah. So I've got 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl, and they're all in their 20s. They're all grown. Married, moved on, launched in life, and really proud of all the things that they have each done. Sometimes I look at their lives and I think, dang, my kids are more responsible than I am. Like with all the things I've been doing to put my business together, I always feel like life's a little scrappy and you're just making things happen. I started over in life pretty much when I got divorced about 10 years ago. Yeah. And that came with a lot of other life changes, and so it's like I've always felt behind, but then it's kind of cool to see my kids as adults where they're in that putting life together phase and think, oh, they're doing a good job of it.
Yeah. You're like, we did something right, when you watch them, right?
Yeah.
Any struggles that you see your kids going through? For me, I'll just give an example. Like my youngest son, we all 3 of our kids left home during the global event, we'll call it. Our employers, my wife and I, our employers were telling us we had to limit our circle, right? Mm-hmm. As far as where we go and so that we can continue with our jobs. Our jobs weren't in jeopardy, but as long as we did that, we were okay. So we went to our kids and said, hey guys, you got to stay home. It could be a week, it could be a month. We don't know, right? But we really got to limit this. And they're all all 3 of them at different stages were like, okay, well, I'm going to move out.
Yeah. Right.
And they're at the right age to move out. It wasn't that a problem. That wasn't a problem, but we went from a full house of 5 to 2.
Yeah.
In about a month and a half.
Wow. Right.
So everybody gone, and just that overwhelming silence of and a loss of identity.
Yeah.
Which was really, really weird to kind of go from a busy place where you're in demand, you got to be places, you got to do things, to nothing. And it is like, I don't know what to do with myself.
Yeah.
Podcasting was part of my life at that point, but oh my gosh, like, what do I do? Like, who am I anymore? I don't even know who I am. Right.
Right. It's that those moments that I like for I had that happen kind of in reverse because I got divorced when my kids were teenagers, and we were the house where there was always our 3 kids plus 3 to 6 more. Like, you know, if each friend had a friend or 2 over, it was loud. It was a lot going on. I got divorced, moved out, rented a room where, you know, I felt like a monk. Like, I got this one little space. I rented a furnished room, just took what I had, you know, my own personal stuff. And, but I just remember sitting there in silence, just thinking, where's the noise? Where's the life? And for myself, like you mentioned identity. I've had a hard time even feeling like I was a father. It's like, am I even still, can I still call myself a dad when I don't live in my house with my kids? And when I'm not, you know, interacting with them at random times. Yeah, I think we miss the value. We don't always understand the value of those random conversations when you both end up at the fridge at midnight, or, you know, sitting in the backyard around a fire, or, you know, whatever. Like, you pull up to a grocery store to go in, but you're in the middle of a conversation. So you sit in the parking lot for 15 minutes and get into some deep heart to heart thing that the kid would never ask you. They would never come to you with say, Dad, I really want to have this deep conversation about this thing, and I want to ask you this advice. Yet the conversation goes the right direction, and the door opens up, and that becomes you sitting in a random parking lot for 20 minutes, forgetting that you were supposed to go in and get milk.
Yeah, right. Then you have the whole part about navigating your own personal relationship with your partner and your kids watching that unfold.
Right.
Because that's a teachable moment for them too, right? Because they've known you as a couple their whole life.
Yes.
And now there's an identity challenge for your kids now too. Like, how do I navigate this?
Well, and this was, you know, we look back and we're like, man, I could have handled this a little better. I got divorced and came out all in one package.
Wow.
So there was the identity shift of like, who's my dad? You know, what's that? Our relationship had been pretty toxic for a while. So, you know, it's sad when you get divorced and your kids are like, we were waiting for it to happen, you know, and, you know, you hear years later, you don't hear those things in the moment. But, you know, kids pick up on more than we give them credit for. And for me, it was very much, you know, not being comfortable in my own skin. I allowed people to kind of run all over me, not kind of, but very much so. And so over the first few years, I was learning to stand up for myself, to, you know, be a different person from a healthier perspective. And yet looking back, I'm like, oh, wait, I didn't understand the dynamics of my kids are seeing a different side of dad that they haven't seen, that in the long term is healthier, but they don't know how to process that as what's, you know, who's this person? You're not listening to mom anymore? You're talking back? It's like, well, yeah, because I shouldn't be talked to like that. But now it's perceived as argument. And one thing that I've really appreciated with my kids looking now is that being separate of that space, I can have a way more honest conversation around life things. Like when you ask about, are they having a struggle? I can be way more open about, man, this was a rough patch in my life and this is how I got through it. And I'm no longer concerned about the dynamic of a relationship. And I've really, one phrase that I come back to a lot is, I don't want to be saying, you know, well, your mom's this, so of course that happened, or, you know, put the blame in that direction, because that doesn't take any onus for me on my part in a relationship.
Yeah.
But to be able to say, mom and I didn't give you a good example of a healthy relationship, and here's what I've learned since, or here's what I'm bringing into my life, or here's what I'm expecting for myself, or how I've grown. Because it makes it about me. It acknowledges the fact that, yes, that wasn't a good relationship, and I like to say it was a toxic relationship, but it's like chlorine and ammonia. Two things can clean a surface on their own, but you put them together and you're blowing up the bathroom. So,
Yeah.
who's to say who's the more toxic component? However,
Right.
to be able to say, look, we didn't give you that, but now that I know this, it's almost like I want to make up for lost time, but I also have to acknowledge that you can't go back and repair everything. You can't go back, oh, you know what? When you were 5, I should have taught you this thing, or I wish I would have shown you this example when you were 12. You have to take the relationship where it's at and be able to say, man, yeah, that would have been great to be able to do this back then, but I see you doing this right now, and that's awesome. And here's something I've learned since that maybe will help you in the parts that don't feel awesome.
So you said it was the divorce and coming out at the same time? Is that how it unfolded for your kids?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
All at once. And
so had the kids been anticipating both of those things happening?
No, I don't.
No.
I don't think they were. I know they weren't anticipating a dad being gay situation. And,
Yeah.
I grew up 80s, 90s, like not feeling comfortable in my own skin. And that's a whole story and everything. But I remember there was a point in that process where one of my kids said to me, he's like, Dad, I don't care that you're gay. I just don't know why you would have lied about it. And it was such a like punch to the gut in like, man, like they're not understanding the dynamics around. Well, it wasn't like I was trying to be deceptive to like craft this life and then keep this thing going on. It was like, no, I was trying to not have that thing go on. It was the opposite. I was trying to make that work. Like I tried as hard as I could to make all that happen. And then, you get to a point where you're like, oh, I'm not in a good relationship. I'm not bringing my best self to a relationship, and I'm not demanding the best for myself. And those feelings don't go away the older you get. They just get worse because they're not, addressed. And so, but at the same time, I thought to myself, well, we did something right in raising him, because if that's his response, it's not this, oh my gosh, dad's gay, like now I got to disown you, or, it's that wasn't the part. It was the honesty part. Like from an ethical standpoint, those are the things I want my kids to care about, is honesty and not your identity.
Yeah. The one thing I always try to remind myself as a dad is this is my first time being a dad. And the first time being a dad at this stage of being a dad.
Right.
I've never done this before.
Yeah.
Right. You have, 2 grandchildren coming up. I have 2. You'll have 3 total. Like, it's the first time doing all of these things. Like, we've never done this before.
Yeah.
And the original idea for this podcast, Andy, was based on one of my kids in the hospital when we were having our baby, and the doctor looking at me saying, if you pass out, there's no one going to catch you, because we're all here for your wife. We're here to help with the babies, the delivery of the baby. And you just stay out of the way, and there's nobody here for you.
Yeah, it's like dad's job is to hold his own.
Right. But those words, there's nobody here for you, was haunting for me as a dad, because I wasn't carrying the baby like my wife. Right. I was on the outside looking in at all these things. I'm going to be granted the title of dad, but I don't feel like I really earned it. Like, I'm just kind of the guy who carries stuff. Yeah. That's what my job is, right? But for her, she's got more of an intimate process.
Right. She's been developing a relationship with the baby before the baby's even born.
Yeah.
And
So, but when a doctor looks at you and says, there's nobody here for you, the next day was for me when it really sunk in, because the family had come, visited, and went home. She's resting, baby sleeping in my arms. And I'm like, it was like a bee buzzing around my head. This idea that there's nobody here for you. Yeah. And I'm like, why is it like that for dads? Why is it like that for men, that we just have to figure it out? Yeah. And why are we so disconnected?
Well, and I know that it's harder. It's been harder for guys to open up and talk about emotions and support. Yeah. And what's, that's bad enough individually as it is, from being able to have your own mental health worked on and developed. But you look at how that expands into society. And if you look at the number of resources, for example, for women getting out of relationships, or especially abusive relationships, compared to the amount of resources for men getting out of very abusive relationships, it's a huge disparity. It's like, it's way, like, I want to say a few years ago, there were like thousands of shelters for women getting out of situations. And in the US, there were like one or two for men. And yet, I think it's been a bit since I've seen the numbers, but it's like 1 in 4 women are in abusive relationships and like 1 in 5 men. So when you do the math, it's like 40% of abuse victims are actually men. And now so we need to verify those numbers, but it's very staggering. It's a lot closer. The point is, it's a lot closer than people think it is.
Yeah.
And so unfortunately then, and even if it's not abuse, it's just going through a divorce or going through a bad time or not knowing what to do. We haven't cultivated spaces like this enough where men can open up and say, man, who do I talk to? I was just talking to a friend of mine that's a father who's going through a divorce, and he's the primary caretaker of the kids. And yet for him to get support and help when he can't afford a lawyer to advocate for the best things for his kids and his voice in that situation, yet if he were a woman, the cry for help would be heard a lot more. And it's not that cry for help for women shouldn't be heard,
right?
But it shouldn't be at the expense of men not being able to also speak up. And
true,
I was sat in that space during my divorce, not being able to afford an attorney, figuring out my own changes in life, getting lost. And you know, thank God I had some close friends who I could talk to, but we need to develop those relationships before we get into those spaces. Otherwise, we don't even know where to go or who to call, or someone's not going to call us and say, man, you're pretty quiet. I haven't heard from you. What's going on? You okay? Everything going on over there? Or I heard something's going on. So I don't know if that answers your question. I kind of went on a tangent there around, numbers I'm pulling out of, from documentaries I watched 6 years ago, where I'm like, I know those numbers were staggering. I can't remember exactly what they were, but look up the numbers and do your own research. Let my thought be the spark that gets you to do the math. But even more than the numbers, make connections and for yourself and for your dads that because it ebbs and flows. Like, I might be able to help somebody right now, but a couple years ago I needed that help, and a couple years from now I might need help again.
And again, I don't want to take anything away from my wife and having the baby and raising the children. Like, she's a superstar. But I found that as a young dad, people kind of gravitated to her and her needs. Nobody came to me and asked me, right?
Yeah.
I know dads that wrestle with kind of the same types of feelings that my wife would be having after having the baby, but never really talked about for guys, that they could have the same kind of depression and the loss of identity and, like, just overwhelm. And, like, dads don't get around and talk about that stuff.
Yeah.
My wife would go off with one of our newborns and go to a shower for the kids and get presents. Yeah. I'd sit at home.
Right.
And I'm like, can I come?
Right. Yeah. Or if you're the dad at the park with the kids, it's like, are you the weird one? Or like, do we talk, like it's hard to break that barrier. Now, I will say in Tacoma where I live, there's a very active dads group. It's probably the most active dads group in the country. And it's every week there's 1 or 2 different types of events for dads to meet up. And a lot of it is dad's game night just with dads, or happy hour once a month, or coffee a couple times a month, or there's a book club, and there's a couple adventure days where you bring your kids, and it creates those conversations. And there's this, you kind of see these cycles of people coming through at different stages of their fatherhood. And that's a group I learned about after I was divorced. And I was maybe a couple years through my divorce, and I purposely didn't go because I'm like, well, I don't live with my kids. They're practically grown at this point. But the bigger issue was, I didn't want to go see a bunch of happy dads talking about their home life when I felt really crappy about mine and feel disconnected as a father. I'm like, that was too painful.
That's really interesting. Yeah. I wanted this show and the conversations we have on the show to be that some form of filling of that gap. I know we can't fix it at all by simply talking about it, but I think it's a start.
Right.
The fact that there's something happening out there for dads to at least they can listen and go, oh wait, it's not just me sitting here alone in this one bedroom,
right?
And wondering where my life went wrong or what could I have done better. When you look at stuff, Andy, and you kind of go in your mind, if you had a do-over, or in golf like a mulligan, I guess they call it,
right? Yeah,
you had a chance to just take one step and go in a different direction. When you look back at stuff, is there anything you might have changed your approach? How you communicated with your kids?
Definitely. And this is the thing that I have an interesting relationship with. And first, I do want to say, like, to your point, I don't want to put this all out there to doom and gloom everybody. It really is for that reason that you just said. Like, people need to know other people feel the same way so they don't feel alone, and so that it starts the conversation. Like, that's what this is all about, is knowing that these are the conversations we need to be having, and that raising your hand and saying, or even just, tapping on the window and be like, hey, I feel the same way. As we share our stories, people kind of reach out and go, oh man, I didn't know anyone else felt that way. I felt really bad for feeling that way. It's like you already feel bad, and then you feel bad for feeling bad, and it compounds. But when I look at things I would do over, I have a lot of things that I wish I handled differently. I also know that all of those things led me to the good things that are going on right now. And so it's hard to know, if you're baking a cake and you take out a flavor that you don't like, you take out, you're like, why do I need to put baking powder or baking soda in there? Or why do I don't like flour. I want it really sweet. I'm just going to put sugar in. Well, the cake's not going to turn out. Those are all essential to the ingredients, and they're essential at the right time. So the conversations where I wish I would have had the knowledge to, rather than try to, argue about something and say, well, this is how this should be, just to say, well, why do you think it's that way? Or, there's ways that you can learn on how to talk with your kids through situations, especially when you're dealing with a partner that you're not a partner with anymore, so that you're not putting the kids in the middle of it, but making them keep each of you separate from I heard this from a friend one time who was going through something with their divorce, and that something has gone on with their ex-wife, and it was, man, I'm telling them, well, mom said this because of that, and this had to happen because of this, and I'm, arguing my case. Well, as fathers, we don't want to be arguing our case with our parents, because no matter what, that's still the kid's parent. But he had a phrase that I think his therapist had told him, was saying, well, instead of trying to argue your side, why don't you just say, well, why do you think they would have done that? Or why do you think they would have said that? And then you're no longer putting an explanation in the kid's head. You're just letting them start to think critically. And that was a tip that I learned a couple years in that I wish I knew from the beginning. Cause I'm like, there's a few situations I could have applied that to. And I always did try to be careful to not be the guy that's like putting parent against parent. And I want my kids to be able to share the good things that are going on with someone that I'm not a partner with anymore, because that is still their mom. And I want a open dynamic with my kids where they can talk about things. So the big thing that was a change for me was when I started to shift from thinking, do I need to stand up for myself and be right? Or do I need to do everything I can for the best relationship with my kids? And that means if they don't return a call for 5 days, think of when they call, don't go, well, I bet you would have called your mom back by now, or I bet you did this weekend with you. Instead you say, I'm glad to hear from you. Or if they call and they didn't reply, and then pretty soon there's like, you get the, sorry, I didn't get back to that. I'm like, no big deal. I figured when you had time, you call. Even if you have some hurt on the inside, or you're waiting for that call, you've got to set that aside, because I don't want them feeling like, well, if I call dad, I'm going to get a guilt trip. Like, my goal is to be the easy parent as much as possible, and to do what I can to just move the relationship forward. And that made it so much less stressful, because the flip side of that is thinking about, when I was in my early 20s, how often did I call my parents back? And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
it might not have anything to do with divorce or gayness or whatever's going on in my head that I'm trying to put it on. It's probably just, it's a 22-year-old who doesn't really care to talk to dad that much on the phone. That's just life. That's just normal behavior for that age. But we put it all on ourselves, right?
Yeah. And I think coming back to it's this idea that this is all of our first day doing today.
Yeah.
We've never done this before.
Mm-hmm.
We've never been to this point with this circumstances and all these life events and everything we've been through. And we've never had today before. This is the first time we've done this. We're all just humans, and we've never been human before. Like we're all learning. It's like on the job training that just never ends.
Yeah.
You know,
I think
you get hired, you get right. Yeah.
Yeah. We grow up with this perception that, well, our parents are adults. And, when we're 8 to 12 years old or whatever, we're in that age range where we're kind of have a little awareness of dynamics. And we think, well, they chose to have kids. They have everything figured out. They have all the answers. And you get to a point where you look back and you go, they were figuring out car payments and putting a roof on the house and groceries and stuff that I'm still figuring out at certain, like I'm going, man, I'm 50 and I'm figuring out certain things. Sometimes I'm thinking, oh, they were trying to figure out their own life as well as give us the best that they could.
Yeah.
So it changes your view of your parents, but also then you have to remember that for yourself of, like you said, there's not a manual. Every kid is different. Every situation, every set of experience we had leading into it. And that's also why having these conversations, finding support, because yes, while you heard that from the doctor, there's no one there for you. We have to find people to be there for us and set up that community and that support, whether they're in your neighborhood, whether it's, siblings, in-laws, best friends, or it's someone that you know from an online support group that you can either message with or call and have a conversation and develop those relationships. That's like you said about loving about podcasting. I love that we can hop on any social media site and you can find a group that is like-minded for your thing.
Giving yourself grace that you're not perfect. You're going to make mistakes as a dad. Not holding yourself to some high standard that is unachievable. Like I think sometimes we really get down on ourselves when we don't fit what we think is the ideal version of dad.
Right. Yeah.
Right? We know better than anybody what our shortcomings are. My wife has a list. I'm sure she has a very lengthy list of my shortcomings, but I internally already know all of the things that I've done, I've thought of doing. Like I have my own list. And sometimes when you're alone with that list, it's quite scary because you're mentally doing an inventory going, why do I do these things? Why am I this type of person? Why am I struggling here?
Yeah.
And then when you look around and there's no one else in the room, you're like, okay, well, where do I go? Like, who do I talk to about this? I don't even know where to start. Right?
Well, and one thing I think that's so important to learn how our brain works so we can protect ourselves from what our brain will do to us. I remember a time after my divorce where I was behind on rent, didn't have power. I was afraid of getting kicked out of my place. And every morning I'd wake up like thinking, is the sheriff going to knock on the door? Like what's going to happen next?
Wow.
And scanning for this threat, of like, oh my gosh, like what kind of hole? And then doing the beating yourself up over how did you get here and you should know better and all the negative talk. But when I learned that it's a normal behavior to scan for threat when you wake up, like that's how our brains work. So then I could wake up and go, yep, my brain's doing what it's supposed to do, which is freaking me out. But that's how my brain works. It doesn't mean that all those things are true. I need to get up and start my day, but acknowledge that feeling is there.
Yeah.
And so it kind of detaches me from believing the scan assessment that I'm doing in the moment. And it just, it makes it so much better to get out of that line of thinking. But
what are you doing to stay relevant in the lives of your kids?
That's a really good question. I think that's one point that came to mind when you were talking about, this expectation on dads is that there's this thought that dads are supposed to have it all figured out. Like you're supposed to have the answers. And then I've always kind of felt like, man, if I have to ask for help, there's shame there. Or if I don't know.
Right.
And I've actually accepted the idea that it's okay to Google or ask AI, like, what's a good idea for how do I connect with a grandkid I don't see as often as I want? So things like that. So I just did this the other day. Like my grandkid I wasn't going to see on their birthday, and I recorded a video and was like, hey, happy birthday. Like remembering that no matter what the dynamic is, you still have to put something out there and show up. And I try to make sure that I'm aware of where they're at and what's going on in their life, and not expect that they're going to have the same struggles in life that I had. If they have a dynamic in a relationship that reminds me of my dynamic with my spouse, it doesn't mean that my kid's going to react and be the same way. They have a completely different upbringing and understanding. So it's really about just being there for when we can have calls. Like I remember there was one point when, like, there's moments where you're like, man, I was really proud of that dad moment. Like, how do I find that one again? But there was a point where my son was working overnight security, and I was in the middle of the divorce, and I was Uber driving after hours after I got off work, and on weekends, like sometimes till like 2 a.m. or 4 a.m, depending on how the rides were going. Oh. But I could call and be like, hey, you want a milkshake or a hot chocolate? I'm stopping by, I'm in the neighborhood, and could see him for 5 or 10 minutes. And that was time I wouldn't have spent with him. And those are some of my favorite memories. That was just totally easy thing to do. Spent $2 here and there and got to hang out for 15 minutes and gave him a relief from whatever the monotony of his job overnight. And so I think there's, it's okay to Google and look up things. I think about some of the things I did when I love some of the stuff that I got to do as a dad when my kids were younger. Like when I went on a work trip, I would hide things around the house and then leave clues for the kids to find while I was gone. Sometimes it would be like a movie they could watch that I bought and hid somewhere for all three of them. Sometimes it would be like their favorite candy bar would be hidden for each of them somewhere in the house. And it's like things like that where it's like, how do I recreate that type of experience as a dad now for kids that are adults, and whether it's for my grandkids or for my kids? And so it's, I can't wait to be having my business just rocking and rolling so much that I could just surprise Venmo them something, and buy their affection. So there's things that I know I want to do, but also we have to remember there's a lot we can do that doesn't cost money, doesn't take much time. It can take time, but we have to do what we can with whatever resources we have. And so, for me, it's making the phone call, sending the text, making sure. One thing I don't know why, it's not like my kids are all talking to each other and sitting next to each other all the time, but in my head, I don't want it to be, oh, it's 3:00 on Thursday, dad's calling each of his kids, because in my head, it's like, did you get a call from dad today? And so I try to make sure that it's, spread out and intentional about that specific kid. And the other thing is I'm very careful to not group them all together and be like, well, you kids, here's the thing I'm doing with the kids. They're all so separate that this is what one kid is really interested in, and have those conversations about that and ask about that, and not have it be the group, are we doing a thing this weekend?
When you look at your family growing up and now grandchildren on their way and stuff, what are kind of some of your hopes as a dad, grandfather, as you kind of look down the path? What's down the road for you?
The biggest thing is I want to be connected, and I want to be someone they can lean on, and a good example. And that's the one thing is I want, I think about just the things that I have in mind, like, okay, well, how can I take some of those experiences I did for my kids and take those as a grandpa now, like for my grandkids, without getting in the way of their own parenting things. And so that's one thing. And I have to remember, like, with one thing that I have kept in mind through this, not through this whole divorce situation, but it popped in my head at one point years down the road, where I thought I had a friend of mine that I knew, and I didn't know this side of them, but they had connected with their father and didn't meet their father until they were like in their 30s or 40s, and had a great relationship with them by the time I knew them. Didn't know that that was disconnected their entire life. And it just reminded me that there are people who start a relationship at any point in time and have an amazing relationship. And so we can't get caught up in if you have distance for a while, there can always be a point to build it. And so we always have to be trying to build it. And so that's kind of my thing is that down the road, like I have big dreams of like, you know, having the place where we can all go camping together and all these things that's like, okay, this would be so much fun. I also know that everyone's lives are so busy that who knows if that all would even just work out scheduling wise, but just having the offer be able to be there.
Yeah. I think for me, from my side too, is just how can I be more intentional? Understanding that when you're in your 20s and early 30s, there's really you don't really see a finish line, right? You're just so focused on family and building your home and your family and your relationship with your partner. You that's your main focus. But now, being that they kind of come into your life and then they leave and they come back in and then they leave, you have these moments where you're alone, and it's like, what can I do when I have the time with them?
Right.
And how can, without spoiling, without lavishing them with gifts, as much as I love to do that, how can I be intentional? With the moments I have with my kids and their kids.
Right. And the thing that I struggled with for a while was, you know, going through the changes I went through in life and becoming very independent and starting my business. You know, you mentioned being awkward. I'm, you know, own your awkward's my thing. Everything's about that.
Promote.
But there was a point where I was like, man, is Dad just throwing everything behind and doing his own thing? But I also, it can seem selfish to follow our own interests, but we also we can't have our kids feeling like our parents don't have a life without them, because I want my kids to have that for themselves. And so I need to give them example of like seeing Dad rebuild his life, seeing Dad have his own interests that are healthy and dynamic and growing, whether it's friends or hobbies or whatever those things are, that aren't, if I'm home alone and the kids aren't there, that it's a guilt trip, or it's just sitting around waiting for my kids to come see me, because that you're going to be sitting a long time. And I want to create the example that they create that life for themselves in the future too. And so that it also then becomes something I can include them on. When I do see them or hang out, it's like, man, I'm working on this thing. Check this out. Let me show you how it works, or what's cool about it. Or let me introduce you to these people in the community I met that, you know, are in the dad's group. And now that you're having kids, or whatever the thing is, it's like, now you can bring your experiences into your kids' lives. So that's something that is just like in relationships where, you know, people struggle with, can I go out with friends after work if it's not with my spouse? Or, you know, how do we balance the dynamic of our own interest outside of our relationship? And we have to apply that same thought to our relationship with our kids.
If your kids were to press play on this episode, is there a message you have for them at this stage of their life? And you're like, my hope for you is something kind of come to mind?
Yeah, you know, God, that gets you, that cuts deep right there. It is.
I'm wrestling with it. That's why I'm asking. I'm wrestling with it myself, right?
One thing I used to always like text them on their birthday, and I mean, not that I don't still, but I would always say something like, I'm so proud of you, love you so much. And I felt like it almost got to the point where it's like, I don't want to keep saying I'm proud of you, because I don't want you to think it's just the go-to phrase that Dad says. So trying to be able to, the thing that I love the most about my kids is the people that they are. They're caring, they are considerate, they're funny, they're talented, and they put those talents to good use for good reasons in the community. And that just makes me so happy. And even when I can't be there with them or experiencing those moments, I'm always there cheering for them, and it's like I'm there in spirit. And whether that's 100 years from now and I'm dead and they're doing whatever, it's like you'll always be there for your kids, even if you're not in the same room.
Yeah. The one I'm wrestling with is my kids have seen my mistakes, but they have never seen my regrets.
Oh, yeah.
Right. They have no idea what my regrets are.
Mm-hmm.
They know exactly what my mistakes are. The time when I flipped up, when I made a mistake, or I got angry when I shouldn't have, or whatever. Right. They know those. They can quote those verbatim.
Right.
But they don't know the things that they don't know.
Yeah.
Right. And those are the things that I wrestle with.
Right. Yeah.
And,
I think about those times where it's like, man, I snapped at the kid too fast, or or I didn't, the guilt of a father of not going out and playing in the backyard right when you got home from work because you were exhausted and the kid wanted to play with you, and now you're on the flip side and they're exhausted and you're like, are you going to play with me?
Yeah.
And but there's so many moments that, yes, you wish you could relive. And at the same time, would you be as intentional now if you didn't have the hurt for yourself of going through that? Like, that is also what makes you a more intentional, better focused father now. And so it's like, we have to be able to say, God, I hate that that's how I learned this lesson, but it did get me here.
And for our kids to understand as well that even though they may see us as an adult, with everything pulled together like we saw our parents as adults, we're still, again, this is our first time. And we're navigating and we're bumping into the walls and stubbing our toe just like everybody else. We just happen to have the title of dad at the same time. So I love the idea, Andy, of building in public, right? Don't hide behind some curtain and try to build and then present ourselves like, ta-da, look at me, I'm great.
Right. It's all perfect and ready.
No. Here's all of my warts and all of my mistakes and my wrinkles and all of the things that I get wrong. And I want you to learn that from me as a dad, that if I can navigate all of my regrets and all of my mistakes in front of you and still love you and still show up, that might be permission for you to not hide the weaknesses that you have.
Right.
For our kids, right?
Yeah.
For you to develop them. I want you to see that me wrestle with myself in real time.
Yeah,
you can learn from that.
That was a huge thing when I, made the changes I did when I did. A lot of it had to do with the ages that my kids were, and I was seeing them getting into relationships. And I remember thinking, how can I ever talk to them through something that could be so personal and so, such damaging thoughts in their head that they could be having about struggling with something if I never addressed it myself? How can I have an honest conversation? And it's one of those, like, yes, in some ways it was the worst timing for having kids that are teenagers to be going through parents getting divorced, dad coming out, all those life changes happening for everybody. But at the same time, it was that learning in public of like, well, if we don't rip off the Band-Aid and get things fixed, how are you going to get into your early adulthood, and how can we have the right lessons? And so that is such a powerful lesson that whether we like it or not, we have to learn in public.
What else are we missing, Andy, because we wrap up? What else are we missing? What's something really awkward from your time as a dad? Come on.
Really awkward.
Come on.
I tell you, I look back and I just remember that feeling of, I'm supposed to have it all figured out, and I don't have it all figured out, but I used to pretend like I had it all figured out, and that actually created more awkward moments because people see right through that. They're like, we see the dad showing up trying to, get the double stroller unfolded while he's holding something at the same time, and you're like, he is struggling, but he's trying to act cool, and we can all see it, and it's not even from a making fun of it. It's like just kind of laughing like, oh God, I've been there. I was that guy. And yet, to just be able to say, could you use a little help here? Or have you ever had this kind of stroller? Or do it's okay to set the thing down? Or, or that I think we've all grabbed our kid out of the car seat and whacked their head so hard getting out of the parking lot where you misjudge the thing and you're just going, oh my God, I feel like there's those moments where I think that I know that we've all had those moments where we feel like the worst parent ever.
Yeah.
And the thing to remember, I think, is that we could apply that to everything in life. I've had moments where I felt like the worst son, the worst brother, the worst employee, the worst podcast host, the worst anything. We've all had those things where we thought that was not a good move. But the important thing is, how do we recover from it? Are we honest with the people around us about, hey, I didn't handle that well. Let's move, how do we repair it? Or I didn't handle that well, but I don't know what to do. Can you help me find out what to do? Even if you don't know what to do, can you help me find what to do? Like, just knowing that we're not going to know, but that we need to be open to the help and the vulnerability. That's life right there.
Yeah, the one I'm thinking of as you're talking to, Andy, is there's no trophy for doing it alone.
Yeah. Right.
Because there's nobody to celebrate with you when you claim your trophy.
Yeah.
Because you did it by yourself. You don't need anybody, right?
Exactly.
That whole thing of getting your groceries into the house from the car, and you're going to do it in one trip, and I don't want any help. I can carry 35 bags of groceries and dog food and water, and I got it.
Who cares if
your neighbors
bag
are
is
watching?
Slicing my hands open? Like, I'll get them in one trip.
There goes an orange rolling down the driveway. But I can do this. I don't need your help.
Right. Exactly.
And I think as dads, we do need somebody to step in and go, look, you're being ridiculous. Yeah. This is really awkward for you that you're trying to do all this on your own. Yeah. Without any help. And let people help you.
Well, and I think one thing that's also dangerous, and I'm just having this realization as the phrasing that you just used about needing help, is that I think we need to get past whether we need help and accepting it even if we don't need it. Like, this would be easier with help. It doesn't have to get to the point of, hey, I need help over here. What about, man, I could have saved myself 20 minutes. You know how many tasks I have that I call they're 9-month and 10-minute tasks. And it was the 9 months of putting it off and procrastinating and thinking about how hard it's going to be. And then the 10 minutes was when I looked it up on YouTube or asked someone for help. And it was like, that's all it took.
That was it.
Like, I didn't do this for 9 months because I created some story in my head. And it's like, yeah, the last 10 minutes was when I actually needed the help, but I could have accepted it any of that whole time leading up to it. And so, learning to just think, man, if two of us are carrying this thing, yes, I might be able to carry it by myself for 20 feet, but it's going to be a lot easier 20 feet if two of us are carrying it. And we could probably go 100 feet if we're both doing it.
And don't be afraid to ask your kids for help.
Oh, that is weird. Yeah.
That's weird.
It's
right. Because
it is. Yeah. Yeah. I think as a father, when your kids become adults, and, my son, he's in his profession, he's done a lot of shooting and stuff, guns and stuff. And I had never shot a gun. I grew up like, we weren't allowed to point a squirt gun at, like, my parents were like, you don't point a gun at a car, even if it's squirt. Like, it was just like so anti-gun that I was afraid of. Yeah. And it was so weird to have my son teach me how to do something that I was very hesitant about, that he was very comfortable with. And and that happens way sooner. Like, they're 14-year-olds and they know things we don't know. Right. But being able to not just get out of this head of, well, I'm the adult, I should know, and they should be learning from me, but be able to say, what are they becoming experts in, or what are they really skilled at that I'm not, that I can learn from? And that is a huge thing to grow a relationship. When you actually ask for help, you're saying, I want to have a relationship with you. Will you please teach me this thing? And sometimes you got to get interested in things you might not even think you're interested in because your kid got interested in it. You're just like, I had no desire to shoot a gun, but I wanted to be involved with what my kid's interested in. And I had fun doing it.
And think of the life lesson we're teaching our kids when we ask for help, and our kids, I'd start to identify opportunities for them to be helpful, that they can then take that with them. Right. Right. And now have their radars up looking for other people that they can be helpful to as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one thing that my ex-wife and I were on the same page about, was not talking down to our kids, really respecting them as just like any other adult, of, like, what is it that you value? What do you want? What do you bring to the table? And now that they are adults, that's just magnified so much more, where I can have conversations with them about, a couple of years ago, I was having car trouble, and my daughter had a car she had gotten. It was just really interesting to have this conversation like I would have with a friend about, oh God, there's $600, and like, what are we going to do here and there? And just saving up for the next car. And if I had a lot of judgment around where I was as a father, we wouldn't have had that connection.
Yeah. Interesting. Andy, again, thank you for making time to jump on and be open about your story and your journey. I think there's a lot of good things coming up for you and your family in the future. So, and as we're talking, I'm just imagining a dad just kind of nodding along with this, going, oh my gosh, I needed to hear this today.
Well, I hope it resonates with someone. As you know, like you said with podcasting, you get to talk to so many people, and you're one of the people I always love. Every time we get to talk, it's just like always going to be a good conversation. But the flip side of that is we have great conversations, and this is amazing. This is enough. I get enough out of just the conversation, but we never know who hears it or where it resonated. Every once in a while, you might get a comment or a blurb or some feedback, but I just put my head on the pillow at night going, somebody heard it and it resonated, and that makes me feel good.
Yeah, and what makes it really meaningful as well is when action's taken. So it's one thing to hear the words, it's another thing to act on them. So as you're listening to Andy tell his story and share his heart with everybody today, there's something that resonates with you as you listen to this. Don't let that moment pass you by. You're going to be like, yeah, I'll remember. No, you won't. Act on it. Whatever that is. I don't know what that is for you, but
yeah,
there's something that Andy's talked about today or in the conversation today that's really kind of connected with you in the moment, then do something about it. Don't let this just pass you by.
Yeah. And Dave, I just appreciate you creating this space. And I hope if there's anybody out there that, has some coffee money and they want to put some coffee in your cup, I know you've got to buy me a coffee, because I know that you do all of this just to create great spaces and how much that helps. So buy Dave a cup of coffee. The link's in there. You can make it happen if it works.
See,
Dave likes his coffee.
Yeah, I run on coffee, so I appreciate that, Andy. That's so good. Andy, you do a lot to help people as well. So before we go, please tell people how you help them and how they can connect with you. Because, there's a lot of awkward in the world, and now we have a superhero in our corner to help us with this.
Oh, well, thank you, Dave. So when I got divorced, I started my business, which was not immediately. It wasn't like, this is the master plan. But after going through those changes, I've really stumbled upon that, I had always wanted to be a speaker and an author, and started pursuing that. And then I had people asking, how come you're not coaching people? You are really good with that. So I've since, in the last 10 years, developed my brand, Own Your Awkward. It's all around taking that thing we feel a little bit comfortable about and learning to use that as our superpower. You heard about my own not being comfortable, and as soon as it's like facing a fear, you deal with one and then a new one rises to the top. But it's about how we learn to approach it and realize that's what makes us unique and different. So I coach people, whether it's people who want to get on stage and speak, people who are entrepreneurs, or really who want to take that next step in life and are trying to figure out how to make that thing happen and get the confidence to do it. And I also work on team development, employee engagement, do keynotes, motivational speaking, which is so much fun because I love working with the crowd. But you can find me at awkwardcareer.com. I'm on all the socials. If you see me pop up, I love to connect, but the easiest way is go to awkwardcareer.com, connect with me there. I've got a free Discover Your Hidden Superpower worksheet people can go through just to find that thing you feel quirky about and learn how to use it for yourself.
Nice.
So, I love being out there and helping make the world a positive place.
Well, you did it today, Eddie. Thank you so much for being on here on Dad Space. So glad to have you here. Come back again in the future. I'd love to have you back. It's always great to have time with you.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Dave.
Excellent, everybody. You know what to do. Go check out Andy's stuff. He's a superhuman. We need more Andys in the world. And thankfully, I found one, and I'm a big fan. So thanks, Andy, so much. Hey, thanks for listening to the show. I really appreciate you being here and making time in your busy life as a dad to listen to a podcast called Dad Space. It's so great to have you here. I love to serve you any way possible if you need anything from me. reach out dadspace.ca. If you're finding value in the show and you're like, this is great, I wish I could do something to help Dave, it's very simple. There's a Buy Me a Coffee link on my website, and all the money that comes in from Buy Me a Coffee, I then reinvest in other people. Other people who are creatives, they're creating podcasts, they're doing all of those other stuff. I coach podcasting on and on. I like to take that money that comes from you, and I'm very grateful for it, and reinvest it into somebody else. So if you're wondering why that's there, that's what it's for. And if you can help the show and help me help others, then go grab that Buy Me a Coffee link. You can do like even one single coffee is like $5 Canadian. I'd love to have that money to reinvest in others, and I really appreciate that. So thanks for being here. Remember, this podcast is always free. No ads, no commercials to skip. It's all about you. It's all about the content. So thanks for your help. Thank you for being here, and I appreciate you so much. I'd love to meet you virtually, email, DMs, whatever. Let's meet. I'd love to chat. Thanks for supporting Dad Space. Talk soon.